Howdy folks, Lisa here at Everything is a Lie. Welcome back or welcome. We are at New Norcia today, 130 kilometres north of Perth, as we continue on with the attack of the benevolent societies, as I've been calling it. We have a heck of a lot to look at today, continuing on from St Mary's Cathedral, where we had our master masons had to disappear, apparently couldn't finish the cathedral, to go and build New Norcia. I was really quite anxious to go there and take a look. So today is finally the culmination of that.
Wake up and listen.
I do apologise firstly for the length of this video. I don't like to make long videos. They do take me a heck of a long time to do. But I said I would just snip in some of the official BS, and here we are 2 months later. And oh boy, do I need a shower. It was thick. So apologies, take it in a couple of parts if you want. I just needed to get it finished and get it out to you. So following on from the lockdown in WA, I couldn't wait to get out of the house and hired myself a mystery deal from Hertz. Gotta love a good Hyundai. Rather serendipitously, the main entry road was closed on the way in, and I followed the detour which took me past this lookout. I would have missed it otherwise. The weather, which didn't look like it was going to be particularly kind, was perfectly kind. In fact, it stopped raining whenever I needed it to, at the lookout for example. Rained while I was in the car, stopped raining for the tour, stayed dry for the rest of the day. I honestly thought it was going to be a complete washout. I'll read from the plaque as you see what the weather looked like when I arrived. In January 1846, two Spanish Benedictine monks, Dom Rosendo Salvado and Dom Jose Benito Serra, arrived in Perth with a large party of Catholic missionaries under Perth's first bishop, Bishop John Brady. The following month, guided by two Aboriginal trackers, the monks set out with their two companions into the bush, where they lived a largely nomadic life until March 1847, when they established a permanent camp by the banks of the Moore River, 132 kilometres north of the city. At this place, which they named New Norcia, after the birthplace of St Benedict, the founder of their order, they laid the foundations of a Benedictine monastery, which was to become one of the largest Aboriginal missions in Australia. Dom Rosendo Salvado aimed to establish his mission as a self-sufficient village community based on agriculture. To this end, he encouraged the local Noongar people to live on their own country in mission cottages. Their work involved clearing the land, shearing sheep, cooking, sowing, and harvesting crops. Olive groves were established to supply oil for food, religious ceremonies, lighting, and medicinal uses. New Norcia's first cricket team, consisting entirely of Aboriginal players, was formed on the 18th of January 1879 under the tutelage of Henry Lefroy. Over the following years, these teams enjoyed many outstanding successes. Salvado travelled to Europe several times collecting recruits for the mission, as well as funds, artworks, books, and new ideas which he brought back to the mission. I won't continue with this. It's all the hero's story as usual, and all the dark, ugly bits have been omitted. After a lap of town, I did a quick time check. Yep, always 33. Had some lunch and waited to see if anyone else was going to turn up for the tour. I was almost entirely alone in town, really. But I had a look in the museum and they asked me to wait. They thought someone else was coming. So sure enough, we made the minimum requirement of 4 and me. And we got going at exactly 1:33 and finished at exactly 3:33. No, I'm not kidding. That's how my days work. Before I go any further, I would also like to note that the official BS constantly refers to the orphan Aboriginal children. They were not orphans, they were stolen from their parents. These are some examples of where you can get more information for the non-Australian viewers of this video who would like to know more. Their story is very ugly, but not entirely dissimilar to what ours is turning out to be, as I find. Please go and watch some of these links. So for wanting of a better account, I couldn't find one. Here we are at Wikipedia again. New Norcia is a town in Western Australia, 132 kilometres north of Perth, near the Great Northern Highway. It was on the Great Northern Highway. The highway has since been moved. It's also right near the ground station for the European Space Agency. And I will pop in some details of that. Established in 1846 as a mission to the native Aborigines, led by two Spanish Benedictines, or black monks as they were referred to. Spanish-style architecture, along with some other historical sites. Two boarding schools, St. Ildefonsus, that's a hard one, and St. Gertrudes, both now used for accommodation and various social functions. Not recently. An old mill, a wine press, the hotel, which is now closed down, and the monastery itself. So there's various outbuildings, etc. I won't go through this. You guys know how to read Wikipedia. I'm just going to point at this. Fulgentus Torres. We will take a quick look at him later. There is a page here for the first abbot, Rosendo Salvado, the second abbot, Torres. This red indicates there was a page for him, but it's now gone. So it doesn't get you anywhere. These guys, there's never been a page for them. So there's no link. This is a dead link. Anyway, we'll move on. It really is only the buildings that we're concerned with. The official history is hearsay evidence at best. And if you want to know more, well, you have to buy the book. That's how they roll. This account from Newadventorg was helpful. I'll just quickly skim over. Founded on the 1st of March 1846 by Spanish Benedictine, can't say this, but it looks like Rude Sindus, and it translates to Rosendo Salvado, for the Christianising of the Australian Aborigines. It is situated, we know that, bound by the Diocese of Perth and the Diocese of Gertrudes. This mission at first had no territory. Its saintly founder, like the Baptist of old, lived in the wilderness, leading the same nomadic life as the savages whom he had come to lead out of darkness. His food was of the most variable character, consisting of wild roots dug out of the earth by the spears of his swarthy neophytes, with lizards, iguanas, even worms in times of distress, or, when fortunate, in the chase with the native kangaroo. After 3 years of unparalleled hardships amongst this cannibal race, Salvado came to the conclusion that they were capable of Christianity. Bless him. Assisted by some friends, he started for Rome in 1849, clearly got sick of living in the bush, to procure auxiliaries and money to assist him in prosecuting his work of civilization. While in Rome, he was appointed Bishop of Port Victoria in Northern Australia, being consecrated on the 15th of August 1849. Before he left Rome, all of his people of Port Victoria had abandoned the diocese for the goldfields. Interesting. The gold rush hadn't started. Okay. I also have to note that through much looking, Port Victoria in Northern Territory, Port Victoria in 1848. I couldn't find a Port Victoria. The only Port Victoria is actually in South Australia, which is on the bottom of Australia. It's got nothing to do with Northern Australia. It's the exact opposite. So I went back to the New Advent site, and that link for Port Victoria then says it's in the Seychelles. So Australian National University site has got that wrong as well. It's got nothing to do with Northern Territory. Get your facts straight, people. Nowhere near. Bishop Salvado thereupon implored the Pope to permit him to return to his beloved Australian blacks. He set out for Spain and obtained there monetary assistance for over 40 young volunteers. All of these afterwards became Benedictines because they were slaves and forced, maybe? They landed in Australia in charge of their bishop on the 15th of August in 1852. Bishop Salvado, with his band of willing workers, commenced operations forthwith. Yes, post-haste, gentlemen, we have lives to ruin. They cleared land for the plough and introduced the natives to habits of industry. I'm not going to go on and read this, but it led me to a fascinating link, which I'll show you now. The decree of propaganda. So luckily they gave me a link for that. Sacred Congregation of Propaganda. The Sacred Congregation of De Propaganda Fide, whose official title is Sacra Congregatio Christiano Nomini Propagando, is the department of the pontifical administration charged with the spread of Catholicism and with the regulation of ecclesiastical affairs in non-Catholic countries. The intrinsic importance of its duties and the extraordinary extent of its authority and of the territory under its jurisdiction have caused the Cardinal Prefect of Propaganda to be known as the Red Pope. Now, I've heard of the Black Pope, but I'd never heard of the Red Pope. Basically, Propaganda Fide is meant to translate to the propagation of faith. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that it means something very different in English. I'll leave the link if you want to have a further read. So one thing that became immediately apparent was in searching for these buildings, there's no history at all outside what New Norcia itself gives us. I thought this might have led somewhere, but and that's not even New Norcia, that's Singleton in New South Wales. It just links straight back to the New Norcia website created by the Benedictine community. So that and Wikipedia is all we have. Further searching netted nothing. Wikipedia, it's all tourism sites predominantly, a grey depressing place, or newspaper articles. There's really New Norcia. It's all by the same people. So they wrote their own history. They published their own history, or they translated it from whatever language it was in. Interesting. Let's see what the architects can tell us. Okay, folks, we'll take a quick look at one of the architects, Enrique Sagner. 1858 to 1931, he was alive. We're just going to skim through his works. There's not really any point delving too much into his history. Once you see the works, you'll understand why. I don't know that any of them are actually really his. I'm not sure what's going on with his hands and his coat there, but I could not find any details of if he was a mason or not. Beautifully ornate. Law courts. Barcelona apartments. House. Ooh, that one's very underwater, isn't it? Wow, look at that tower. Impressive. I can see from this he likes to build buildings half under the ground. Wow. An arc? Arco. Not seeing a lot of other works from Australia. Clearly he just came for New Norcia by the looks of it. Seen that one. That's starting to look a bit familiar. 1916. Yeah, that's impressive, isn't it? Is that an asylum? Oh, exhibition buildings. Who would have thought? A castle. New Norcia, finally. St. Gertrudes. Right. Well, that's Enrique. Quite a portfolio of oldie-worldy architecture there. And also on Mr. Sagner, I stumbled upon this, and I just have to show it to you. It looks like a bad translation, and it reads quite badly, but I will do my best with it. Placed at Tibidabo Avenue of Barcelona, the headquarters of Mutua Universal is a palacete built by the architect Enrique Sagner and Villavecchia between 1915 and 1918. It was ordered by the Dr. Salvador Andrew and pharmaceutical acquaintance, employer and philanthropist from Barcelona that entered the pharmaceutical industry in Spain, drove the urbanization of the mountain of Tibidabo, such as we know it today, and went mecenas of great artists, especially of Enrique Granados, to which united him a great friendship. I don't even know what that means. The headquarters of Mutua Universal is part of a complex of 3 buildings in which the central areas of the company are concentrated. The building of 800 square metres, blah, 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 ground floor, main and garrets. The main facade is structured on an axis of symmetry starting from 2 prominent bodies on one of head office, in which the front door is found in ground floor, and a great balcony on the flat finished off with an imposing sculpted pediment. Did you understand anything I said? I think it's translated, sorry. The building has a great tall historical cost, and it is classed as protected heritage of level C since during the Civil War held Consulate General of the USSR with a range of embassy whose legation was captained, doesn't matter. The building holds a bunker that was built in 1936 to protect the members of the consulate of the bombings of the Italian aviation. The bunker of more than 50 square metres is kept intact with its protected dependencies between thick reinforced concrete walls, all rendered red brick of 40 centimetres to that which is accessed for blah. It doesn't make sense. But look at the photos. Look at that. A bunker that just happened to be put under a building in 1936. A building that looks like that. Enough. Moving on. We'll just quickly take a look at our other architect, 2 of 2, Bishop Fulgentus Antonio Torres. These are his dates. Ordained at 27, died at 53. This is all on catholichierarchy.org. Not much there of any use. So I did find his biography in the Australian National University website that says born 1861, Ibiza, educated University of Barcelona, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, entered the monastery in 1885, yada, yada, yada. This is all his church history. Arrived in Fremantle on the Weimar in 1901. Confirmed as an abbot in 1902 and naturalised in 1904. I'm not even going to read the rest of that because it doesn't matter. The thing I did notice was, through much searching, there's no other architectural works attributed to him. So, did he design anything? Did he have help? I have to assume that he had help from high up above, because there are no other buildings or attributions of construction, architect, anything attributable to him. So that's Fulgentus Torres. So taking a moment to orient ourselves before we look at the actual architecture, we're coming into town this way. So this was the Great Northern Highway, which is now New Norcia Road, and the highway goes way up beyond here where we've come from. So coming in this way, we'll call the buildings as per this map just in case there's any confusion. But this education centre, I believe, was the boys' orphanage. I'll expand on that more later. And the girls' orphanage was housed in this building. This, number 10. We didn't get to see inside that building, and there wasn't a lot. It is built up off the road, so I won't go through that one. We'll have a bit of a look here. We definitely will look at St. Ildefonsus, I can never say it, sorry folks, and St. Gertrudes. So the girls' boarding school, the boys' boarding school. Can't wait, last but not least, to look at the handball courts. I have a brief look at the flour mill over here, the main monastery building, and a quick look at the Abbey Church. They're sort of the main meat and potatoes, if you will, of the area, and the New Norcia Hotel. So where we were from the lookout, looking this way, fairly level, and then sloping up the hill behind. Okay, let's start with the education centre. So what's now known as the Education Centre was once previously St. Mary's for the Boys' Orphanage. I'll just read a little bit from the opening of it from the newspaper in 1924. The new substantial and handsome brick building, recently finished, furnished and lighted with electricity at the New Norcia Mission for the benefit of native boys, was officially opened on Sunday, July 13 by the Honourable Minister in charge of the Aborigines Department, Mr. J.W. Hickey. The building is capable of accommodating 60 boys and consists of 2 large dormitories, a spacious schoolroom, kitchen, pantry, etc., together with rooms for the staff. The Reverend Father Thomas and Brother Louis are in charge of the orphanage and in constant attendance on the boys. Ample recreation ground is provided, and the whole is surrounded with a massive brick wall, cutting it away from the rest of the mission institutions completely. The minister, accompanied by Mr. Trethowan, Under Secretary, Mr. Campbell, Colonel Denton and Mrs. Denton, and a large crowd of visitors were, to their great delight, entertained by the natives in the shape of a splendid performance of dancing, singing, music, etc. The performance quite astonished most of the visitors, who never dreamed the natives being so capable. The minister, in the course of a sincere and appropriate speech, characterised the performance as worthy of Perth. All the speakers referred in similar terms to the performances and praised the performers and the Lord Abbot, Father Thomas and Brother Louis. During the visit, the minister inspected the quarters set apart for the natives and half-caste girls, and was much impressed by the excellence of all the arrangements and the instances of careful and affectionate attention to the mental and bodily welfare of the inmates. I'm going to call that fake news.
But I mean, it was all a big put on, a big show, you know. They made a big fuss here. The day anyone came, there's bloody lollies and God knows what. But as soon as the backs were turned, you were back to square one.
Sadly, that gentleman has a full grasp of the attack of the benevolent societies. Okay, so we'll keep moseying on down the road to St. Joseph's, now passing by the classroom block. I'll just quickly slip this in as well, the classroom block. I didn't go into that building, but I did find a construction image of it. It is slightly up off the road, as you can see as we go by. Mr. Lund was our photographer, taken in 1920. If we take a close look, there it is under construction. It is much darker in the lower level than the upper level, so there's no roof, but there's a timber floor. I don't know, just guessing. Interesting how these lintels at the top are completely different to these bricked ones at the bottom. I don't know what they are. Power lines. There's also quite a difference between the ground height there. The road seems to have dropped over time. That's all I've got for you there. Continuing to St. Joseph's, which is the Aboriginal girls' orphanage and now houses the museum as well. Construction is listed at, 1906 or 1908. I will briefly show you a construction photo. This is where we started our tour. I kept fairly quiet on the tour, but I did ask one question and you'll see the result of that. So that's the entire length of the building, which does not at all match the construction photos. I had to come back and look at it on Google because I was rushing along behind the tour group and missing it. It's, again, that same sort of architecture. That end does look like it has been added on later, although that curved doorway there does look a bit out of character for a later added building. It's high up off the ground. It has mud flood windows at the bottom. What else can I tell you? It used to have bars on the window apparently, but they've been removed. That's St. Gertrudes in the background there. I want to talk about that gable at the end there where the cross is. And those windows. on here? These windows.
So this is the storerooms of the
Storerooms.
girls from the orphanage.
Oh, okay.
You had those.
Yeah, I know.
Like a cellar.
It doesn't look very inviting, does it? Storerooms. Of course, it was built that way. They needed an entire floor for storage. Where have we heard that story before? So just looking at the rear, that would be the later extension added on. The main building in the centre there, which I believe also housed the convent. And we'll look at the construction photo. I just want to sigh when I look at it. Every time I sigh, I know that I'm sensing total BS. The roof profile is completely different. So none of these gables are now there. And then they've miraculously added a big gable here on the current building. And I'm not sure why. This doesn't look like it has a roof. I will say these trees look like they're photoshopped in, or is it the building that's photoshopped in? This is where the convent building, the big 2-story building, should be. And we've got some vanilla sky and stuff happening there. I don't know what the piles of dirt are about. This bit looks quite identical to what we have now. Notice the windows are all exactly the same and look whited out, except for these bigger ones. The fence is different. It looks very suspect to me. And here are some of the residents. I was looking at this more for the brickwork and the state of it. I believe this was taken on the other side of the building at the rear. Does not look consistent, the brickwork. And over here it's not been cleaned at all after construction. I'm not sure. Notice the girls, who will tell you themselves in the link I'll attach. They were slaves. They were basically slaves. They catered to the nuns and the monks and the priests and the boarding schools. They did the laundry. They did the cooking. So all dressed in white would not be practical. And most of the time they talk about being barefoot. So I'm just going to leave it there. Moving on. Just note, as we pass the end of the convent building there, that house to the right hand side, I just wanted to touch on, see the height of it. From the back of the convent building, it looks like a single-story house, but note the height from the road that we just saw. It's a single-story house to all intents and purposes, but with the bottom half hidden, a veranda slapped around it, and it does have one of those matching chimneys that I keep finding all around the suburbs of Perth, which would indicate a certain age of house. So was that a 2-story building as well? Not sure, no information. Looking at the hotel now. So I've got 1926 as the purported build date for the hotel, and it is the most far back from the road of all the buildings. I hadn't realised until I got there that the hotel actually had closed down, and it closed down strangely at the beginning of January, which you would think would be a fairly busy tourist time. Also, very good timing given the Kung flu outbreak and the money it would have cost them to maintain the employees, etc., whilst it was closed for COVID. Look at the sky. So basically they just said, we're closing it. As a community, we understand New Norcia Hotel has been of significance to generations of locals, and the decision to close it has not been taken lightly. A Benedictine community representative declined to be interviewed. Victoria Plains Shire President Pauline Bantock said the closure had come out of the blue and would have a big impact on the area, as the hotel was a popular spot with tourists and the local community. Used by locals, big for weddings, etc. Apparently rather haunted too, but there you go. That was good timing on their part, wasn't it? So this one is really on a very grand scale, slightly up off the road, as you can see by the stairs, and I will do a bit of a walk around at the back. Its size is quite imposing and disproportionate to some of the other buildings. So this is the rear, and the side, and you'll never guess what's behind it. A golf course. Who'd have thought? Not a very impressive golf course, mind you, but it's a golf course. So this image from 1928, it must have gone up fairly quickly then, because it looks completed there, doesn't it? This is the best image to give us an idea of the scale of it, looking at these people. Huge high roof there. And I will just zoom in here if I can, because we can see the back of St. Joseph's here, with that column conveniently in the way to hide where it would show us the other building. So these are the parapets with a skillion or flat roof, whatever you want to call it, where the missing gable was. So, not sure about that. I won't dwell on it. One of the few images I could find of inside from back in the day. Let's see, what was this one's 1928, the same thing. Again, the sheer size of the place is fascinating. So this would be from the bottom level halfway up the stairs. And then, come on, give me the other image. Looking back down. So basically 2 staircases to get between levels. Huge. More recent image. So as far as any signs of mud flood, etc., buried windows, it's all well covered up. The only other thing to look at up here is this remaining small storage building tacked on at the back. It has some of the correct brickwork. It has a whole lot of renovation done to it, and it's kind of neither here nor there. It's oldie worldy and new worldy and thrown together. Moving on. Okay, St. Gertrudes College was designed by Bishop Torres with the assistance of Barcelona architect Enrique Sagner to cater for a growing demand in community education. It was built under the bishop's personal supervision between 1906 and 1907, with accommodation for 125 girls, and opened in 1908. Bricks made on site. Note the interesting symbology on the front there. Pax Fides being peace and faith. Also the all-seeing eye there. Also that strange little castle thing in the bottom, which appears on the door, we'll look at later. The spires. This is a rear shot of the building. That's the full rear. Note the canteen building to the left-hand side, we'll talk about. Also in the centre there, the round protrusion, is the chapel part, which gives us some interesting symbology as well. So the Society of Jesus again. Also, what's behind the curtain? Some interesting artwork she described. I won't delve into it. I think it was added much later. The stained glass in the main front door. And again, this strange arc-looking thing. I don't know what that is. Let me know if you do. Just a couple of internal images. Note the decorative mouldings and the pressed metal ceilings. We didn't see a real lot in there and we weren't allowed to go upstairs. Total of 3 images we'll look at here. Starting with the basic. External. This fence all looks fairly current. I'm trying to... That's the newer version of the fence and a different end on that building. Again, the girls' orphanage or St. Joseph's. We have spires or antenna. Vanilla sky. I'm not sure I can tell too much from that. The piles of dirt again are interesting, because this is where the road goes through now. So they hadn't even built the road? No? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe the road is behind. No, this is I'm sure this is the fence where I took my photo. How odd. So this should be the main road. New Norcia Road, which was Great Northern Highway at one point. The brickwork looks good there. I don't know. Closer in. Now, is that missing fence? The fence goes straight through. The fence stops. Maybe that's a different fence. I don't know. We need to look back here. Come on, zoom in for me. Okay, so this is definitely brick, if this is the canteen building. And conveniently cuts off anything else. Ooh. The wires. That's interesting, isn't it? They're clearly not stays or anything holding them up, or they would be on multiple sides. That's wires. Oh, St. Gertrudes, you are endlessly fascinating. You have to wonder what these buildings' original purpose were. And there's one more image inside the chapel. Same as now, Society of Jesus. This is all different though. This is not the artwork behind the curtain that she showed us on the tour. it's quite different in the walls there. I'd have to check the date on that. The rest of the decoration seems the same. Okay. And again, I close it and then I realise something else. 1920, the boys' orphanage supposedly had electrical power when it opened in 1924. So there's no power lines at all here in 1920. Mustn't have got power yet. Okay. Okay, and another interesting one of the rear of St. Gertrudes. Students on school grounds with sports equipment, so they're all just standing there for a stage photo if it's even real, because many of them have rackets and some of them have hockey sticks, which makes a whole lot of sense. And this building in particular was what interested me. Oh, apart from the shadows. So the shadows are going two different directions again. It's all a bit odd. Makes me wince. This building looks more like it's timber than brick. So this is not the canteen building, but this is the edge of the cistern, water tank, whatever it is. And this building would indicate that the shadow is directly overhead, pretty much, if it's got shadows on both sides of the building.
I mean the sun.
Can't really see a lot more that would indicate anything important. There are bits that are blurry, shadows that look weird. Again, there's spires here, not crosses. That colour doesn't seem to match that colour if it's an open field. Stage photo, 1923. That was another Ernestlund Mitchell image as well, I forgot to mention. Let's concentrate on the cistern. This is an interesting building. I'll read from the cistern plaque. The St. Gertrudes Cottage and Cistern. This one-room cottage with a cistern attached was built with the main college building of St. Gertrudes under the direction of Abbot Torres in 1908. The cottage has had various uses as an outbuilding of the college and was the canteen/tuck shop in the 1980s before the closure of the school in 1991. The cottage has considerable significance as a part of the college precinct and contributes to its aesthetic, historic, scientific and social value. In particular, it makes an important contribution to the townscape of New Norcia. The pillars and wrought iron balustrades on the north side enclose a large underground water tank or cistern. It is part of a network of wells, cisterns and rainwater tanks that make up the complicated drainage and water supply systems that have developed in New Norcia over time. The cistern is currently part of the secondary water supply system, delivering reservoir water and stormwater to gardens. Was it really built as a water tank? And was it under or above ground? I give up. More confused than ever. Let's look at the church, as if we weren't confused enough already. Okay, the Abbey Church, as it's known, construction began in the 1850s apparently. The original building was of contemporary Georgian design, which Abbot Torres altered in the 20th century by adding the Latin-flavoured facade and bell tower. The church has been extended over the years, and the latest addition at the rear was built to house the massive church organ brought back from Germany in the 1920s by the noted Benedictine composer Father Stephen Moreno. Inside the church is a marble tomb of New Norcia's founder, Rosendo Salvado, and the painting of Our Lady of Good Counsel, which St. Vincent Pallotti gave to the young Salvado before he left Rome in 1845. I wonder if he dragged that around the bush with him all that time. One of New Norcia's best-known stories relates to how a bushfire threatening the mission's crops in 1847 was turned back when this painting was placed in its path. It's a miracle. I'll read from the official story that's hanging just inside the church itself. As part of the redevelopment of the monastery and the town undertaken by Abbot Torres, the present front facade and clock tower were added to the church in 1908. The design was still classical, but much more urbane and fashionable, with lime-washed stucco mouldings and dressings, and waterproof corrugated iron sheeting fixed over the shingles. The original front doors were incorporated... I can't read that word. The original front doors were incorporated something with a new stained glass LED light and pediment overhead. New steps were added. The side walls remained much as they were. The interior of the Torres church was repainted in a strong scheme of frieze, pilasters and window dressings. A new carved and gilded altar was installed under the painted Lamb of God ceiling. The sanctuary was separated from the choir by a screen of decorative timber and arches. Behind the screen is the tomb of Bishop Salvado, which was set in the middle of the choir. I won't go on. Folks, all I can say is I really don't know what to make of it. It's ridiculously long. There's multiple ceiling heights in there. The centre, the Lamb of God bit, the Jesuit space lamb, I don't know why the ceiling is dropped there. There's a little short person door in the back there that makes no great sense, with the other door right next to it is up above. The clock tower is totally out of place on a church, isn't it? And to me, it looks more Greek Orthodox than it does remotely Catholic. I don't know. Let's look at the monastery building. From the plaque out the front. On the 1st of March 1847, Dom Rosendo Salvado and Dom Joseph Serra laid the foundation stone for a permanent mission building. It was a year to the day since Benedictine monks set up their first camp in the Victoria Plains, and Salvado described the laying of the stone as the best possible way of celebrating the anniversary of our arrival in the bush. Today's monastery is centred upon the site of the original mission building, which Salvado and Serra completed in 1847 with the assistance of a group of volunteers from Perth. Additional wings were added to the second half of the 19th century, and under New Norcia's second abbot, Dom Fulgentus Torres, a properly appointed monastery was established. Behind the monastery's wrought iron gates, imported by Torres from England in the early 20th century, stands a statue of St. Benedict, who founded the Benedictine order. So from the tour, we weren't invited into the building. I believe you can arrange accommodation and access to the library. The Spanish mission style we've seen before in Cottesloe. It's just a cover-up makeover. The back of the building is a no-go zone. It's no entry, can't go there. So I did manage to get to the other side and snap a pic along there. And sure enough, there is at least half another floor, if not an entire floor, on the back half that is not on the front half of the building. And it doesn't look like it's in a good state. It's not really meant to be that way, I'm pretty sure. I didn't go any further in. I just zoomed in, took the pic and left in case the all-seeing eye of God on the front of the building was watching me at the back. Let's take a look at a photo. This is the earliest one I could spot. Taken by Mr. Ernestlund Mitchell. How do we get to it? There we go. I hope you can't hear anything in the background. My cat's washing and it doesn't sound very good at all. Okay. First impressions, it's very old and dirty looking, isn't it? Of course, no shadows. A distinct lack of trees too, really. There's a tree over there. 1923. So what did we say before? 1924 was power. 1920 there wasn't power lines. There's power lines here. I wonder what these grid lines are about. Does that help them construct the images? So it looks much as it does now. Is that some vanilla sky happening? It's just a drainage gully, isn't it? Top hats. Oh, there we go. It's definitely been retouched, hasn't it? It looks almost drawn. And it's so dirty. Those strange little peaks. That's interesting. Those windows all flip up that way, and this one opens out from the side. That is weird. Oh look, there's power. Maybe. It is a strange building with this extra floor on top. It doesn't look quite right. This guy's not particularly interested in the conversation, is he? I don't know, folks. What do you think? Well, I couldn't help myself. I had to have a bit more of a look at Ernestlund Mitchell. I thought this part was interesting. Mitchell's photographs dominated the West Australian commercial and official markets from 1909 until the late 1920s. He undertook private commissions as was engaged by commercial clients such as the Western Mail, where a lot of our history is reported from, and several state government departments. After winning a gold medal at the Samarang exhibition in Java in 1914, he was appointed official photographer to the Governor of Western Australia. Mitchell's images of landscapes, towns, primary industry and Aboriginal people in the Kimberley and the Pilbara and at the Moore River Mission were widely reproduced in government publications. His pictures received an international audience as part of the official pearling display at the British Empire exhibition at Wembley in 1924, and one was published in the 1929 edition of the Encyclopaedia Britannica. You can trust our history, folks, I promise. Oh, I should also mention, I didn't realise initially, Mr. Mitchell, State Library photograph, 1923, glass plate, got all that. Glass negative collection acquired by Dr. James Sykes Batty, our Grandmaster Freemason Library Curator. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Mitchell is also a Freemason. Old pals from the lodge. These look like an interesting collection. I will try and get through them really quickly though. There's 29 photos here. Sorry, all from 1923. I'm going to guess same day as the previous one. It's so dirty looking. That really quite surprises me. Because buildings in Western Australia really don't get dirty. People say it's a clean city, Perth, because it gets a good blasting of rain. When it rains sideways. I don't think there's anything much different we can see there from the other image. St. Ildefonsus we're about to get to. St. Ildefonsus. Oh, there's a good old one of the church. Where's the back of it? Surely we should be able to see the back of it. All of them have these lines. That's from St. Gertrudes. I think we've seen one like that already. Yep, we've seen that one. Seen that one. Why are we getting all the same images? We've seen that one. That looks almost identical to the last. Oh, there's another one of the monastery. I'm not sure where that is. Is that inside the monastery? Does it tell us? The music room. There we go, 1920. Music room. I have a cat helping me at present. She's not really helping me much. Bub, in the way. No. Thank you. It's an interesting image. The church roof doesn't look right there, does it? Okay, if you could move your head, Min. Thank you, you're in the way. These cottages aren't there anymore. They've all been removed. More of the cottages that have been removed. They were for the Indigenous families. Boys Orphanage, Wheat Store, St. Ildefonsus. Is that the church? Must be. $1920. Okay. Bit odd. Hmm. $1920, this power line's there. Interesting. That's the last image. Okay, pressing on. I've done it again. I closed it and I couldn't zoom in anymore, so I've taken a screenshot because I've been curious about this extra building, the visitor centre as part of the Aboriginal Girls Orphanage. So I tried to get in a bit closer, and of course it's all pixelated. Why can't I zoom in? Here we go. Whoop. So I'm looking. This hill seems high, very high, given that the tree line is way above St. Gertrudes there. So it kind of doesn't look right. This whole hill here altogether doesn't look quite right. Is that a hole in the image or something reflecting? Or let's get a bit closer. I don't know if you can see what I can see. The pixelation there is different to the pixelation here. If we go right up to the top and then it changes again. I don't know, folks. I might be imagining things, but it just doesn't look quite right to me. That doesn't look right either. Could they have messed with the photos? Yes, of course. We've already seen that many times. All right, I won't dwell on it. Alrighty, over to the flour mill back on the other side of the road. The flour mill dates from 1879 apparently, and everywhere that I looked at said that it's the oldest working mill, but it's not still working. She did mention that on the tour, so you can see it there off to the right hand side of the screen, the white building. The machinery was interesting. It's just a museum really now. Bit rickety. The thing that really fascinated me most, apart from this wonderful piece of steam machinery, was the floor stones, which I don't know if they look like granite. But are they concrete that's been patched, or are they actual stones? Look at the size of them compared to the feet. Anyway, that's all I really want to say about the mill. So around the last corner onto the home straight for the final two buildings of today, St Ildefonsus, and then we'll take a quick look at the handball courts as well. That's about the worst of the brickwork that I've seen. Wow. That's pretty nasty. The old mill. I'm going to go and look in that window. I don't really want to, but I'm going to. Yeah, there's definitely an old storeroom or something in there. See? Seems like a very low doorway. Bit hard to see. Whoa, hold up. I totally missed that on the day. Let's take a closer look at that doorway. Now, despite much looking, I couldn't quite find the exact thing, but I'm thinking that's a feature doorway. It's not just a regular doorway. Close, not really. Similar, no. Very close. Too wide, but much the same thing. Kind of like that, but a double door. With this brickwork, it's not just a regular basement doorway, is it? That wall's on a 45-degree angle too. Yeah, basement, sure. So, St Ildefonsus College for Boys was designed by Bishop Torres with the assistance of Spanish architect Enrique Sagner. Stone was quarried from the hills to the north of the town, and locally made bricks were used in the building's construction. The foundation stone was laid in early 1909, and the school opened in 1913. Teaching at the college was conducted by the Morris brothers from 1913 until 1964, and we're not really concerned with the rest. This must be a picture of them laying the foundation stone in 1909. I'll just take a second to orient us. So this was the classroom block. This was St Mary's, the boys' orphanage, the mill. Now this is St Ilde's here, with the chapel in the centre. So these are two courtyards. We'll take a bit of a look at the chapel before we look at some of the older images of St Ildefonsus. It's really quite beautiful, lavishly decorated, taking up the entire centre of the building. Not sure about that. The frescoes and everything are just beautiful, and that would be a choir or organ loft. And the courtyards, one of the two, that would be the south side one, and the added staircases. Oh, and speaking of staircases, that was an internal one just to the north side of the lobby, carefully locked. Let's look at some old photos. These images were quite interesting. This guy, I couldn't help but compare. Only has one facial expression, but his ear's kind of missing here. A nasty boxing accident or something? I don't know. His neck is... I noticed straight away there was something wrong with his neck, but he only has one facial expression apparently. What else can we see? Look how dodgy this guy looks. Straight away I spotted this guy's been cut out. Or the railing has been pasted in or something behind. The door also. Let's look at the door for a moment. The door as it is now, there is virtually no cover, so there's no portico or anything. The door is almost entirely flush with the front of the building, whereas in these images it's set back, and that happens in both of them. Let's go back. The same, the door is set back. The plaque is different here. So that's been changed. Or it was never like that in the first place. They've just constructed the image. The rail does look the same from what I can see from my photos. But that's a big move. That door is a completely different shape and size. No side lights. And it's a stained glass door. What else? This guy's head looks trimmed as well. Look at that. That looks dodgy as. Something wrong with his neck too. Wonder if he has more than one facial expression. I didn't check. Oh yeah, he looks different here. So this one is 1920 and this one is 1920. Interesting. Same year, different staff. Sorry, that plaque is different too, I think. Sorry if I'm confusing. We must have had to redo the photo after this guy left this mortal coil. Pardon me, some of their necks look quite strange as well. These collars. I don't know if they're just collars photoshopped in or heads photoshopped in. Bodies photoshopped in, I'm not sure. But I call BS. So, I mean, and that wouldn't be too unusual of Marist Brothers teaching staff. There's been some dodgy goings on at various Marist Brothers over the years. Moving on. This one from 1913. Just noticed, like, I'm looking at the door again now. But the banister is completely different here. You've just got posts around the stairs and there's no handrails at all. Totally different profile posts. The door is stepped back further here, but it also doesn't have the top light. So it's a different shape and in a different position again. There are also no flag poles or aerials on top. Is a very vanilla sky. Also trying to get in a little closer. What is that? It looks like a archway, a buried archway. That's all I can see. Take a look at these two images. We'll try and take a look at these two images. Take a look at these two images from Mr. Ernestlund Mitchell as well. It's not a direct side, but I'm going to say we'll call this the south side and we'll call this the north side for argument's sake. Note this tree. It's all a bit overgrown. Note this tree, shrub, whatever you want to call that. I'm not sure how far back the door is there, but we'll compare with the other image. So we have spires or flagpoles or whatever they are, antenna in this one. In the other image from the opposite end, so we'll call this the northern end, that's not the same tree. That's not the same tree either. Go back and compare. Much larger, much larger. 1920. 1920. How many times did Mr. Mitchell visit? Again, if we zoom in here, what are these lines? And what are they connecting to? They can't be power lines, they don't connect to anything. And in 1920. And if you look closely at the, in quotations, flag poles, they have stays holding them up, so it's not a flagpole. How does that work? I can't see a rope or anything to hold a flag up either. And in none of the pictures are there any flags. That looks really dodgy, doesn't it? I think there's one of them at the other corner. Oh, it's a double? Maybe that's why. Does that one have stays? What happened there? Oh no, no stays on that one. Maybe not. Can we tell with this one? It has the bezel bit at the bottom. I can't actually tell if there's any stays. Door. That tree's not on the first one, is it, either? Different shape, different position. It's amazing how much the trees can change in the 1 year. Perhaps in the 1 day. Oh, I just noticed this is where power lines should be connecting, but there's none connected. And I realised from the other pictures of the Marist teaching staff, they're all lined up here for their photograph, which is a garden or an overgrown mess of shrubs and grasses and things. Oh boy. We'll finish up St Ildefonsus with the construction images which were on display inside the building. I didn't bother pulling them up from the library. I could spend hours picking them apart because in my mind they are total and utter poppycock. But I mean, go and take a look if you think there's some merit in them. I think they're hogwash. In fact, I snickered the minute I saw them, and God knows what the other people on the tour thought. Okay, moving on. If you're not already scratching your heads in bewilderment, wait till you see the handball courts. Okay, this is what she was calling the arcade, I think, on the tour. This brick building. It looks like something special, but oh no, it's just a recreation area. And these back here are handball courts. So with a tennis ball and some hands, you can go to town. Have a great time. Handball courts. Storage area now, but yeah. Handball courts. Yep, I can see it for sure. And different sizes for, I don't know a lot about handball. I thought it was just two people lying on the ground and a tennis ball. It's pretty fancy brickwork for a handball court, isn't it? So on the tour she was saying that all the bricks are made locally. They were made here in New Norcia. And all the pitting was because of salinity. So the water used to be a lot saltier. We're a long way from the coast here. Unless they're digging the salt out of the ground, I don't know where all that salt would have come from. It's all Flemish bond, segmented arches. With the corbel, there's a special name for that, and I wish I could remember. Just a play area. Reminds me of a railway station, to be honest. And this is a building that looks just like Albany Bell Castle. Mind you, lots of buildings look just like Albany Bell Castle, I've realised now. Thickness of that brick. They certainly don't build playgrounds like they used to. Yep, look, there's a picture of them playing handball. Definitely a handball court. Who would have thought? Okay, so this is the actual image from the State Library that they've used on the plaque. Plenty of flag poles, or antenna. No flags. I've been looking at the shadows. It's reasonably legit, but I want to know what's going on here. That looks very strange there. that about? And then, come on, scroll. Not sure about that bit either. Cloudy day. Not a lot of shadowing. I'll leave you the link. Yeah, something definitely amiss there. I have to say, this one's got me bamboozled. I really don't know what to make of that. It's definitely not built as handball courts, I can say that. Was it something that had the back blown out of it? So on the day, I missed out on doing the river walk. It would have been a bit late in the day to make it over and back. It was the apiary that mainly I was interested in, but I really wanted to look at the bridge. So the bulk of New Norcia, hang on, I'll show you on my photo, it's going to be easier. So I missed the pig keeper's cottage, but it looks like much of the cottages that we call houses in Perth, and I missed the apiary, which apparently went up in 1918. This is about the best image I could find of that. This was interesting on the roof. I don't know if that's anything important or it was just an afterthought. I don't know how old it is. It looks, yes, it's red brick, but it looks like it's just regular stretcher bond, and it looks like it's sitting on a slab. And it definitely has bees in it as well. So I can't say that it's anything oldie-worldy or important. If I go back, maybe I'll take a backhoe with me. I didn't see this building on the day. I don't know how nearby or far away it is. Victoria Plains Agricultural Hall. It's supposedly part of New Norcia. Does it say that? New Norcia Ruins. So I didn't actually see it. I thought I would just slip it in so you can get an idea of the degradation. And I don't know why this building wasn't saved when all the others were. These look like windows that were bricked up, but then the bricks are all damaged anyway. Somewhere nearby. Nice photos. I've just grabbed this one to give us a bit of a look at the surrounding area. Unfortunately, wrong lens, so it's all a bit distorted. But mainly to look at the countryside. When we get to the countryside, St. Gertrudes, the building that wasn't there. So it's not really globular, it's flat, but undulating, I suppose, would be the best description of it, and quite good growing land, given what we generally have in Western Australia. Also in the area, as I mentioned, is the European Space Agency. Interesting, it's located on the side of a rather large hill, all very restricted. You got to wonder what's inside that hill. I'll give you a bit of a look also with this drone clip of it and the surrounding land there. So it's only 11 kilometres from New Norcia. Looks beautiful and green there. What's in the hill? Oh, and sometimes they actually point the dish up towards space. There we go. Oh, but the firmament. So there she is, all 20,000 acres belonging to the Catholic Church. But I felt that the video wouldn't be complete if we didn't have a bit of a look at some of the lakes or salt pans or possibly bomb craters around the area. And the difference is, it's a bit like a chemistry set. Different colours, different water qualities, different depths. I'm not really sure. I did spend a lot of time flying around there. I flew to Broome 4 times a couple of years ago, and it became 6 trips in total because 2 of them only went a couple of 100 kilometres north and then circled around for a couple of hours before coming back. So I spent a lot of time looking at these pits and holes, and that was before I'd even thought about our fake history and what could have gone on. They constantly surprise me. I mean, you could spend hours and hours searching and looking at them, different watercourses, salt lakes, and some of it's been farmed over, some of it's been bulldozed flat, etc. So what was there, what's there now, probably bear no resemblance. The colours are quite striking though. What else do we need to know? Oh, and zooming out, there are large swathes of land that are just completely wiped out. I don't know, guys. Carpet bombing? What? Natural event? Man-made event? Act of God? And specifically, why are they in certain areas and not in others? In such high intensity? I mean, clearly this is not my field, but I mean, look at it. That's a natural occurrence? I'm pretty doubtful. We'll take a look at a couple of images from the 1930s. From the State Library, salt pans. My understanding is that when you clear too much of the vegetation, the water table rises up and that causes our salinity issues, which we have in much of inland Australia, or so the story goes. That's not what it looks like though. That hasn't just popped up because they cut a tree down. And again, I have to ask why in certain places, but not in others. It looks like they've wiped out a huge swathe of civilization potentially there. I mean, I don't know. Have a Google though. Have a look around the area. It's fascinating. I have one more aerial image I would like to look at before I leave you for the day. Okay, 1930s, 1939. There's 3 here. We'll just look at the one. The first thing I need to point out is the church is white here. The rest of this building isn't there, but that's okay. That looked like a later addition. There's trees in front of it there. Some interesting shadows here from trees that I can't see. This building is gone now. This building looks white. I'll pop a picture of that in. That one's very highly buried by the look of it. That's an interesting shaped building, that one. Look at the classroom block. Does anyone else feel like they're looking at a model there? And given all these shadows here, shadow here. There's not a lot of shadow around this building. And what's going on down here? Are they windows or shrubs? It looks higher off the ground than it does in the other images. See, look at the shadows there on those trees, the length of them. So is this another constructed image? Partially constructed? And this would be where the golf course is? Hard to tell that it's such a big hill there. That would have to be the hotel. Which doesn't look quite right either. Ah, folks. I'm not going to say any more about that. So just so there's no confusion, who are the Jesuits? This symbology that we saw in the chapel. We are the Society of Jesus, a Roman Catholic order of priests and brothers founded half a millennium ago by the soldier turned mystic Ignatius Loyola. I'm not even going to bother reading this. This just makes me sick. Protecting children, young people, and vulnerable adults. I think they mean preying on. And this, one of the most despicable men in the world, with all his friends photoshopped in here, because who would spend time with such an evil man? I'm not going to go into the Benedictine order either. Just know that it's here if you want to look. I did think the motto was interesting, ora et labora, Latin for pray and work. I think pray should be spelled E-Y, shouldn't it? All right, folks, in the interest of timeliness, we'll wrap it up there for the day. Links, as always, below. Hopefully, if you're looking at something in particular, you can find it. If you're looking for more information on the stolen generations, I've left some links for that as well. Probably the best summation of what was going on in New Norcia, I will leave to this gentleman.
You go into a certain area of land and you feel that oneness with the country. I never felt that in New Norcia. I just felt as if it was a place that the government put us to get us out of the way for a while.
That's a very good film. A hard watch, but a very good film. And I think he beautifully summed up the population reset and how to destroy a person's culture and hide their history. Should have brought some birdseed. I would have made a lot of friends now. Well, that was it. We saw it. Now to get home.